I feel very strongly about reviewing, even though in theory I love getting ahead, but I feel like it's really important that we do the summary that we didn't do last week. So that starts on page 60. And I don't mind if we go through it quickly and we don't need to have a tremendous amount of discussion, but I think it's important for us to see how much we've done and how far we've come. So I'm starting on page 60, summary of the halachot related to Erev Shabbat. So it should be, everything here should be familiar. Excuse me. Restrictions 3 days before Shabbat. 1. Shabbat 19a and Shulchan Aruch, one may not set sail or lay siege in a war to enemy cities within 3 days before Shabbat, except in cases of a mitzvah. 2. Mishnah Brura. Many reasons are given for this prohibition, including the following. A. One is forced to desecrate Shabbat or have the Gentile sailors do so on one's behalf due to pikuach nefesh. B. One travels outside the tchum in certain situations. C. Seasickness causes one to nullify the mitzvah of oneg Shabbat. D. Sailing appears like swimming in the water on Shabbat, which is forbidden. 3. Rev Tzvi Goldberg. A. The primary concern of sailing is that one may get seasick. Although perhaps today's ships are much sturdier than those in earlier times, some travelers still get seasick. B. Some calculate the 3 days beginning with Thursday. C. All agree one may remain in port on Shabbat. 4. May one sail when the sailors are Jewish? A. Igrot Moshe. It is permitted for individuals to set sail before Wednesday on a ship with Jewish sailors. B. Yechavadad, Lubavitcher Rebbe, Minchat Yitzchak. It is forbidden to sail on a ship with Jewish sailors even earlier than Wednesday, since they are performing unnecessary melacha on one's behalf. And 5. Yalkut Yosef, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. One should also avoid any other activities during the 3 days prior to Shabbat that may lead to being forced to violate it, such as surgery which may be safely delayed until after Shabbat. Brian, I'm passing it to you on page 61. You're still muted, though.
Sorry, I thought I had it open. 1 second.
All good.
I don't have 61.
Okay, I sent them all in weird order, so that's definitely my fault. Does Cindy, if I pass it to you, do you have 61 there?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Modern forms of transportation before and on Shabbat. 1. Chatam Sofer, Piskei Tshuvot. Some of the considerations mentioned concerning sailing on a ship are relevant to riding a train on Shabbat, including leaving the tchum if one travels outside the city and being jostled around in a manner that prevents fulfilling oneg Shabbat. B. Additional considerations for a train or airplane include the fact that the amount of malacha performed may increase for each person on board. 2. Ramban Chatam Sofer Piskei Tshuvot. An additional consideration when riding a train or plane that is not relevant on a ship is the mitzvah of Shabbaton, which dictates that one must rest and not engage in activities that are done only on weekdays. The constant motion during the trip violates Shabbaton. 3. Tzitz Eliezer Piskei Tshuvot. Granting the opinion of the Chatam Sofer that riding a train is a violation of Shabbaton, according to the Ramban, the same is also true of an airplane and other forms of mass transportation. 4. Yalkut Yosef. A. One may never depart on a ship on Shabbat itself. B. If one is aboard a flight which, through delays, ultimately lands on Shabbat, one must remain in the area of the airport due to the prohibition of leaving the tchum.
Thank you. Vanessa, you're next on my hit list.
The halachot of preparing for Shabbat. Sure, you gave me all the Hebrew words.
Hey, you've been learning for 10 years. You got this.
The verse, remember the day of Shabbat to sanctify it, teaches that one should save delicacies that one encounters during the week for Shabbat and count the days of the week with respect to Shabbat. Beitza 16a. Shammai would designate a choice animal found during the week for Shabbat, and Hillel would bless Hashem for each day's gift, having faith that Hashem would provide him something befitting Shabbat at the end of the week. Mishnah Berurah. Hillel agrees that most people whose faith in Hashem is not as strong as his should act in accordance with Shammai. Penine Halacha. Today, with well-stocked supermarkets, it is not necessary to designate food for Shabbat earlier in the week, but one should honor Shabbat by purchasing appropriate foods in its honor. Bava Kama, 82a Shulchan Aruch. Ezra instituted the practice of laundering clothing on Thursday. Mishnah Berurah Sha'ar Hatzion. The enactment was meant to ensure that one has clean white clothes for Shabbat. A secondary component was to launder on Thursday, so that one has sufficient time on Friday for other Shabbat preparations. Shemirat Shabbat Kehilchata. Today, perhaps one might be lenient when using a washing machine to launder on Friday. Chalakat Olam. Today, it is entirely permitted to launder clothes on Friday, but it is appropriate to do so earlier.
Thank you. Adela, did you have a chance to get 62 downloaded? I know I've also been sending them to you piecemeal.
Thank you very much. Shabbat preparations on Erev Shabbat. Shulchan Aruch. One should arrive. Sorry, my throat's dry. One should arise early on Friday to prepare for Shabbat. Rashi. The source of the halakha is that the man was gathered early in the morning at the time that it fell. Mishnah Berurah. One should not shop for Shabbat on Friday morning before tefillah, unless there may not be enough food left. Shmira Shabbat. You'll have to help me with that, sorry.
Hilchata. Perfect. We all knew what you meant.
Time to complete all of the cooking and other Shabbat preparations as well. If one does a large shopping at a supermarket all at once, then it may be preferable to go before Friday. Mishnah Berurah. It is a mitzvah to taste the Shabbat food on Friday to see if it needs to be to taste the Shabbat food on Friday to see if it needs to be improved by adding salt or spices. Some write that the tasting of the food is always a mitzvah. Sorry, my
Thank
list
you.
was keeping in there. Sorry.
It's perfect. Sorry, we're passing it to you.
Okay, personally preparing for Shabbat. Kiddushin 41a. One should help prepare for Shabbat himself, even if others are available, as his mitzvah is greater when he does it himself. 2. Shar Hatzion. There are two reasons why the Amoraim stopped the Torah study prepare for Shabbat. A. Preparing for Shabbat is a mitzvah incumbent upon oneself. B. Kavod HaShabbat is more weighty than other mitzvah, for which one studying Torah can have others tend to the other mitzvah for him. 3. Shulchan Aruch. One should help prepare for Shabbat oneself, even if others are available, just like the Amoraim mentioned in the Gemara. Mishnah Berurah. One should make sure to help, especially when Friday afternoons are short, to ensure the preparations are complete in time. Aruch HaShulchan. Some rely on the notion that one's wife is equivalent to oneself. Biur Halacha. Although Kavod HaBriyot sometimes overrides other prohibitions, even prominent individuals should prepare for Shabbat, since it is their honor to engage in the mitzvah and it is recognizable to others that this is what they are doing.
Thank you. Is any of this sounding familiar to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Eating a meal on Friday. 1. Psachim 99b. Tanaim disagree as to whether one may eat a meal after the time of Mincha on Erev Shabbat. 2. Gittin. One family was uprooted for fixing a large meal on the eve of Shabbat. 3. Rashi. Some explain that the family set the meal on Friday afternoon, while others explain that they set the meal for Friday night and it was larger than the day meal. 4. Rambam and Shulchan Aruch. It is forbidden to fix an unusually large meal any time on Friday. A regular meal or snack is permitted all day. One should ideally refrain from the 9th halachic hour of the day. 5. What is the reason for this halacha? A. Shulchan Aruch. One should enter Shabbat with an appetite due to kavod Shabbat. B. Prima Garin Bir Alacha. One demeans the honor of Shabbat by equating Friday to Shabbat. C. Magen Avram Rabbeinu Hananel. Having a meal will prevent one from engaging in Shabbat preparation. D. Ramah. A Seudat mitzvah is permitted on Friday. E. Mishnah Brura. Even if the brit or pidyon ben were performed after their ideal time, the accompanying meal is still considered a Seudat mitzvah. It is best to have the meal in the morning. Baraina. Do you have page 64? No, I'm
I am
sorry.
starting from 75, I think.
Okay. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Okay. Cindy.
Performing malacha and traveling on Friday. 1. Psachim. One who performs malacha after mincha time on Friday will not see any signs of blessing from it. 2. Mordechai. This refers to mincha gdola. 3. Rav Eliyahu Mizrahi. This refers to mincha ktana. 4. Shulchan Aruch. The halacha is in accordance with the Gemara, and there are different opinions as to whether it takes effect at mincha ktana or mincha gdola. 5. Mishnah Brura. One who performs malacha until mincha ktana has a basis upon which to rely. 6. Which malacha is permitted? Rima. Malacha that is done quickly, such as writing a letter, is permitted. Yalkut Yosef. Sewing a garment or button are included in the malacha that is permitted. Shulchan Aruch. Malacha necessary for Shabbat is permitted. Mishnah Brura Yalkut Yosef. Malacha that is clearly done for Shabbat is permitted, even for pay, such as giving a haircut to a Jew. Mishnah Brura Pninei Halacha. Commerce and running a store is permitted, providing one returns home with sufficient time to complete his Shabbat preparations. Mishnah Brura. Malacha that is permitted on Chol HaMoed is permitted on Friday afternoon as well.
Thank you. Vanessa, I want to ask you to finish us off, but you look very distraught.
What is the definition of malacha?
So malacha, that's a great question, actually. So malacha in the context of Shabbos seems to mean creative work, like one of the malachas. I think they're talking about, I think that's what they're referring to, meaning doing business. We talked about like doing business was really takana of Ezra, etc. But let's say cutting hair or writing something out or doing whatever, like a real something that is melechet machshevet, meaning thoughtful, creative work, right?
So, as a person who uses their hands for creating things, I always was told I wasn't allowed to embroider on Shabbos.
Exactly. So here we're talking about Erev Shabbos. On Friday even. They don't want you to get caught up in it. Right.
But not on Shabbos itself.
Shabbos, no, everybody agrees that you shouldn't do it. But the new thing that we're learning is that even on Friday, you want to make sure that you're focused on Shabbos.
I see. Okay, lovely. All right. Thank you. Okay. Traveling on Erev Shabbat. Sukkah 44b, Shulchan Aruch. One should not walk more than 3 parsaot on Friday to ensure that his host has time to prepare food for him after his arrival. If his host knows that he is coming, one may travel farther than that. Shimirat Shabbat Kahilata. Today, this rule does not apply, since the host almost always aware of the guest's arrival in advance. And in some places, people tend to prepare extra food. Mishnah Berurah. One should plan one's trip carefully to ensure that he will not end up desecrating Shabbat due to delays and complications. Aruch HaShulchan. One must not travel or remain on a train too close to Shabbat, since the Satan searches for pretext to accuse on Friday afternoons. Shimrat Shabbat Kahil Hata. One should take into account the possibility of unanticipated delays when traveling on Friday afternoon. Rav David Heber. When traveling on Friday afternoon, allow for double the amount of time that the trip normally takes.
Thank you. Thank you. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. We'll start on the next section. I'm not sure how far we'll get, but I really appreciate it. Thank you for indulging me. If you disagree, send me a quick message and say like, no, we can review on our own and we want to just, push forward. I'm open to that. I just feel like there's something really important about review, and I think it's also very satisfying to see how much ground we've covered. So, all right, Allison, if you have page 73 available, the reasons for lighting Shabbat candles.
I just don't have that section now. It might
I'm
be
sorry.
back. Just in the recent ones you said. No, I don't have
We'll
it.
get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
So then I am, Bryna, you said you don't start as early as 73.
I realized I have 73.
Oh, amazing. All right,
Okay.
start us off
Yeah.
with the first intro and the first source, please. No, you're muted.
In the previous share, we studied about halachot that pertain to Erev Shabbat, Friday, and preparing for Shabbat. We now move on to discuss the mitzvah of lighting candles for Shabbat, or hadlakat nerot, which is performed immediately before Shabbat begins. This mitzvah is so important that even one who lacks food to eat should collect charity in order to fulfill it. In the next two shiurim, we will learn about the reasons for this mitzvah and the halachot that one must know to perform it properly. The obligation to light Shabbat candles is first mentioned in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. Rav Nachman bar Rav Zavda said, and others say that it was Rav Nachman bar Rava who said that Rav said, kindling the Shabbos candles is an obligation.
Beautiful. So if you look at the Hebrew, they're using a specific halachic term, chovah. It's an obligation. Okay, so because they're going to be discussing that. Rashi explains that the objective of this obligation is to ensure that the Shabbat meal takes place in the light. Sorry. Sorry, did you?
I'm sorry, I'm having technical issues. Someone actually.
Oh. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to
Sonnenberg?
get. Can you hear us?
Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah.
On and off, yeah.
I'm having technical issues, so I'm gonna go.
Okay. Thank you. I think we lost her. Hopefully we'll see her next week. Okay, sorry. So Rashi is explaining the meaning of this word chovah, obligation. He explains that the objective of the obligation is to ensure that the Shabbat meal takes place in the light to honor Shabbat, kavod Shabbat. An obligation, this is to honor Shabbat as an important meal only takes place in a well-lit environment similar to daylight. I'm going to pass the intro and the next source to you, Cindy.
Rabbeinu Tam, quoted by Tosafot, uses slightly different terminology and explains that the objective of lighting Shabbat candles is enjoyment of Shabbat, oneg Shabbat. He suggests as well that although the word obligation, chovah, used by the Gemara here, is also used regarding washing one's hands after eating, mayim achronim. The two halachot differ from one another. Mayim achronim, whose objective is merely prevention of danger, does not warrant a bracha recited, while hadlakot nerot is designed to enhance one's enjoyment of Shabbat, so one does recite a bracha. Tosafot Shabbat 25b, an obligation. Some want to say that one should not recite a bracha on lighting candles, as the Gemara calls it an obligation, just as it is said in Chulin 105a, mayim achronim is an obligation and does not require a bracha. But Rabbeinu Tam says that this is a mistake, as that is the mitzvah of lighting Shabbat candles, is not analogous to mayim achronim, which is only for mere protection. Rather, lighting candles is an obligation associated with the mitzvah of oneg Shabbat.
Thank you. Vanessa.
At first glance, it seems that Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam disagree somewhat concerning the purpose of hadlachat nerot. Rashi holds that the candles are lit as kavod Shabbat to honor the Shabbos meal, while Rabbeinu Tam argues that they are lit as oneg Shabbat to enjoy the Shabbat meal. Consequently, one would expect that, according to Rabbeinu Tam, if one already had a candle burning before Shabbat, there would be no need to light additional candles, specifically designated for Shabbat, since one still enjoys the meal with light that was lit for other purposes, even if it was not lit for Shabbat. However, Tosafot continues to quote Rabbeinu Tam as saying, there one must specifically extinguish the lit candle and relight it as a situation. Furthermore, it appears to Rabbeinu Tam that if one already had a candle burning, he must extinguish it and relight it.
Which is really fascinating if you think about it, right? Because, yeah, if the candle's already there, if the light's already on, then I will enjoy my meal in the light. But there's something about doing it for Shabbos, right? And I think there's, in many of the previous weeks, we've talked about what makes Shabbos special and what do you do to make Shabbos special. And, it's not only about eating the chicken or the rice pilaf or whatever it is, but it's also about doing it for Shabbat, right? Like this is something that I do specially for Shabbat, even though sometimes if we have, a bar mitzvah or a graduation, sometimes I also eat steak, but this steak is for Shabbat and it's different. Allison, Adela, do you have, we're a little bit tight on time. Can we squeeze in one last source there on page 74?
That's in the pages I don't have. The next in the
No.
70s is 76. So sorry.
All right. So then maybe that's a sign we should stop there. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here, especially for the depth to which you took today's question and for sharing with us as a group, for giving and for receiving. So I really appreciate it. Let me stop the recording.